shall light 1,000 candles, dispelling the night with a glorious morn. We shall sing 1,000 carols, proclaiming our wonderful Savior is born. We shall light 1,000 candles, dispelling the night with a glorious morn. We shall sing 1,000 carols, proclaiming our wonderful Savior is born.
Tell it far and tell it near, speak of the love He gave us.
Every nation needs to hear, Jesus was born to save us. We shall light 1,000 candles, dispelling the night with a glorious morn. We shall sing 1,000 carols, proclaiming our wonderful Savior is born. Go into the blinding night, sing of His great salvation.
Take the glorious
Gospel light to every tongue and nation.
We shall light 1,000 nights, this glorious morn. We shall sing 1,000 wonderful Savior is born. We shall light
1,000 candles, dispelling the night with a glorious night. We shall sing 1,000 carols, proclaiming our wonderful Savior is born. Oh, we shall light 1,000 candles, dispelling the night with a glorious morn. We shall sing 1,000 carols, proclaiming our wonderful Savior is born. We shall all proclaim that our wonderful Savior is born.
Dr. Burgess,
Yes, sir.
when did they get this piece of music?
They got it after the last concert. This is a repeater, to be perfectly honest. President
Well,
Nelson.
but they're not
No,
long from last year.
raise your hand to your first year students, please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you first saw this music when? A couple of weeks ago? Yes. Okay. They're rehearsing. This is in process. So, when is your rehearsal time, by the way? When do you regularly? Monday, Wednesday, Friday at noon. This is not Monday, Wednesday, or Friday, and it's not at noon. They have taken their time to come be with us. So thank you. Dr. Burgess, I think let's start with the canon.
Okay.
And let's do what you had suggested doing with them. I want you all to listen to what happens here.
Okay, so, start at the canyon. Can I have the basics? Would you all go and separate yourselves, maybe even over here?
By the way, this room is hard to do this in. Chapel, nice, live, resonant. This room, a box and sort of dead. Not the most natural environment to do this in. But they're game.
Okay, so, what President Nelson has asked us to do is to sing the canon. Canon is, as you, if you don't know what a canon is, think row, row, row your boat.
Yes.
Okay, so what we're having here in the middle of this piece, the sopranos come in and the altos come in, then the tenors and the basses come in. So let's start it, please, ladies and gentlemen, where the sopranos, altos, tenors, and basses come in. So sopranos will come in first, tenors, altos, and then basses. With me? Sopranos first, sopranos.
We shall light 1,000 candles, dispelling the night with a glorious morn. We shall sing 1,000 carols, proclaiming our wonderful Savior is born. We shall all proclaim
think, out here, what did you hear that time around? What did you notice? Or was it just the same as before? It wasn't just the same. They're literally separated in space, right? What else did you hear?
At least my music faculty called.
Okay. So our volleyball coach had a comment, which was layers. Okay? Anyone else? What did you hear? You don't have to be a music expert or anything. You're a human. So you can hear. What did you hear?
The layers are independent of each other, yet they're all interlocking.
So independent, and we learned this as children when somebody does a canon with us, like row, row, row your boat, and you have to be on your own for a while. So they start, and then someone else, and then someone else, and I think you all are fourth in that mix. So independence was going on. Did it sound like they were fighting with one another, pulling with one another, or what did you hear? You shook your head no.
It sounded like they weren't thinking the same words, but it all sounded the same.
Okay. It was harmonious. Okay. Let's try mixed.
Choir stand mixed, please.
Notice right now they were in 4 sections, and then we broke them up into those sections: soprano, alto, tenor, bass. We're asking them to mix up now. So they're not standing with their sections. There's a lot of confidence to be gained in the sections because you're all there together singing the same part. Then we said they were independent by sections, by moving apart. Now they really have to be independent because they're all mixed up. Listen.
From the beginning. Can you all make some acoustic space for yourself? As far as the I can't see. Me, I can't see you. Me, I still can't see you. If I can't see your mouth, I can't hear it.
We shall light 1,000 candles, dispelling the night with a glorious morn. We shall sing 1,000 carols, proclaiming our wonderful Savior is born. We shall light 1,000 candles, dispelling the night with a glorious morn. We shall sing 1,000 carols, proclaiming our wonderful Savior is born.
Tell it far and tell it near, speak of the love He gave us.
Every nation needs to hear Jesus was born to save us.
Just a second, and I'm going to ask them something. So Atlas, how is that different? Is it different? And if so, how is it different for you singing this?
It is different because I don't have the support of all my basses around me, so I have to know my notes better.
Okay.
You're also fighting against the other parts, so I've got like a bunch of tenors and basses right in my ear, and I'm trying to like tune them out, but listen to them and still sing my part.
Okay. Anyone else? Yes.
I think it's different because I can hear how each part fits together better. I think it is challenging at first to make sure you're like holding your part, but hearing other parts with you also is something.
So if you couldn't hear that, it was the challenge of the other parts and having to be secure in your own, but you started by saying what? Can you say that again?
That you can like hear everybody together.
She said you could hear everyone together. You saw that as a positive because you were hearing the other parts that you were with more clearly than when you were in sections. Dr. Burgess, what did you hear that time?
So, singing like this works on occasion. It works in instances like this when you've got pieces that move up and down. But in pieces that work like Handel's Messiah, where each part has to stay independent, this does not work. But what I like about doing this with young students especially, raise your hand, freshmen, first year, it teaches them independence very, very, very quickly. And each student has to stand on their own. We don't rehearse like this in chapel, we rehearse in sections. We sing like this in performance. We will go to this formation about 2 weeks ahead of time. But it does help everybody to become more independent and stronger. I would never have done this in my entire career. In fact, I never did this in my entire career until I came to Catawba. And a student on the very last day of lessons in carols said, Dr. Burgess, let's stand mixed. And I said, it was my very first lessons in carols at Catawba, and I said, we have never rehearsed mixed. I don't know if you can do it. We don't even know how it's going to look when you walk in. And we went ahead and did it. And it was a life-changing experience to do this.
So I noticed from standing in your sections and then spreading out and then mixing, in particular basses, the tuning was better when you mixed up. And I think it's because you were hearing the other parts more clearly, and that was a good thing that happened when you mixed up. So admittedly more difficult to do this. You have to know your stuff to be able to sing like this. But the possibilities, once you mix up like this, are pretty rich. Can we go to Go Now in Peace? Just have that up. So I want to make a point here. And some of you that are standing right in front of this, if you could just step over for just a moment. So in our first forum, we focused on the idea of the college as a community of learners. In the second forum, I talked to you about this idea of the moral imagination and the college being a place that doesn't simply offer an exceptional education, but also these opportunities for personal formation and the exploration of vocation. And that a particular end of that is for students to develop their moral imagination. We talked about the very kind of mundane issue of in the first weeks of school, somebody says, I don't like my roommate, right? That happens. Yes, that happens. And us wondering about some different alternatives rather than the first thing being, well, we should move you. Right? And so Jared's staff is busy thinking, are there different ways for you to develop as a person in those kinds of challenging environments? And then on our last one, remember we looked at this book that helped us to think about the idea of what a 21st century college might be, sort of tongue-in-cheek saying, yeah, we are a 21st century college because we exist in the 21st century, just like every college. But we're asking some questions about how we best prepare students for the life and work that they'll do in the 21st century. This forum is on leadership, and I'm not doing some leadership lecture today. I want us to think about listening. I primarily want to think about listening. So you've been hearing from these musicians who grace our campus, and we'll hear from them in just a couple of minutes a bit more. But I want you to notice a couple of things that happen for them to be able to do what they do. They literally have to labor together. They are co-laboring, they are collaborating in order to stand up and sing that piece. 50 different voices, 50 plus voices, singing off of a score where sometimes the music's headed one way and one part's headed another, and yet it's harmonious. So while vertically things may be moving in different directions, there's a to what end in this piece. Sound familiar? Yeah. So collaborating. Stewardship of people, time, and space. They're in space together. Physics is happening in this room. And they're practicing the invisible art, right? Because the music was there, and then it's not there. Although in your memory, it's probably there. You can probably still hear it if you try to call that up. But it's there, and then it's gone. Remember that point. A couple of other things. Dr. Burgess, could you just stand up and face them? I hate to put you on display like this, but I know you love it. Would you treat them like the choir and just do with them what you do at the beginning of that piece?
Go down piece?
Either one. Just show them how you, if they were the choir, let them see, because your back is to them. So turn around and show them how you would begin it. Oh, no, not. I just want you to show them what the choir's seeing.
Okay. From Go Down Peace, I'll just imagine it.
That's all you need to do. That's right. So just the downbeat. Very simply. All right? There he gave a downbeat, and then at the end, there's going to be some final cadence. Things come to an end. There are beginnings, there are endings. Can you do Go Now in Peace? Let's run that through with them. All right, so different character of peace than the one before, and it allows us to hear some things just a bit differently. One of the wonderful things about this, about music, about the arts, about laboratories, is creativity, right? All right, so can we try something? Can I have them for a moment?
You can have one.
All right. We have not rehearsed this, and I think probably only a couple of people in this group have ever had me conduct them, because it was my first year here, first semester. So this is totally new for me and for them. Take risks. Okay, so I may not do it at all like Dr. Burgess did. Just walk, but you know this, right? So your eyes are here. Okay, here we go.
Go now. Go now in peace.
Did you see what happened there? Yeah, really watch me there. I don't want you to breathe there. There's nothing wrong with breathing there, but I don't want you to. There we go. Now, keep all of the intensity of that louder, but softer.
Go now in peace, and may God's peace go with you. Believe and trust His holy word. His
Okay, I want you to start at believe and trust His holy word. I want to hold those again, not because I want to do the music differently. I want you to listen to one another. And when you, His holy, will you bring the corners in just a little bit for me? Okay, so right on believe. Thank you. And
Believe and trust His holy word.
oh, no, you're not there yet. Here we go.
Believe and trust His holy word. His holy.
All right, sing His holy and move with me. I want you to watch the vowels right there, okay?
His holy word.
we're not there yet. Leave yourself some space to go. Ready? What did you hear that time?
More dynamics.
So tell us what dynamics are.
So dynamics can be notated in the piece as just a symbol that notates a volume or a certain type of style to sing a note, and you were using more louds, more softs.
Louds and softs. What else did you experience?
Had to work on breathing a lot more than
Okay.
when you go quieter, you have to breathe a lot more than you do.
Yeah, so this is a really interesting thing. Singing, playing an instrument, right, Mr. French horn player? You mistakenly might think that the softer means less support, when in fact you actually have to move more air through the instrument, and these chords are in fact an instrument. It takes a lot of control to be able to do that well. Anything else? Yes.
The difference between singing it fast and singing it slowly.
I was just playing with this because I know how Dr. Burgess did it, so I intentionally did some things differently to see how they responded. Having never worked together, they responded beautifully, right? So I want you to notice, how did you know what I was asking you to do? How many words did I use? None. Well, I used a couple. I stopped you at a couple of points to say, no, not that. But what was I asking you to do when I did that? Yeah, just watch. But I think you did something else in the midst of that, and it's partly because somebody new got up here. You had to really rely on one another, didn't you? You had to listen to one another. By the way, I was thrown because I wasn't expecting to do this with them in a mix. And so I was giving cues to the sopranos over here, right? I gave you about 4 cues. He's not a soprano, yeah? Nevertheless, even with my errors there, what did they do? Right, they did what they knew to do, right? What did you hear? And maybe it's what did you hear, and what lessons do we learn about listening just by this little experiment? And it's an experiment. We didn't practice it. What do you think? Jay?
I could almost hear them like really concentrating a lot.
Hear them concentrating. That's fascinating. Yeah, Earl?
And watching their interaction, you versus Dr. Burke, they focused in on you more because they didn't know you.
I'm unfamiliar, yeah. Yeah, and probably doing some strange things, yeah. Yeah.
And they didn't know where you were moving.
They didn't. Any other thoughts? Yes, Kathy?
I noticed their giftedness in being able to work together that way.
Yeah, so thank you for that. If you didn't hear what Kathy said, she noted their giftedness, right? So there's a lot of talents here. And once again, here they are being directed toward a particular end, right? There's this particular piece of music with various notes and all of that. Did you notice before I started fussing with their vowels? Well, let's just do that one line. Dr. Burgess, if you can give them the notes once again for believe and trust His holy word. And watch me then on His holy word. We're not going to do it in tempo, so just watch me. So believe and trust. Here we are, on believe.
Believe and trust His holy word. His holy word.
Sing that last His holy word once again.
His
Do you hear that? That's not just a chord that you end on all the time. There's a little bit of dissonance there, two notes rubbing right up against one another. So right there on His holy word, this time in tempo. Ready?
His holy word.
That resolution right there is made possible because of the dissonance that happened before it. Those notes that you might hear as fussing with one another, arguing with one another, that's what enables that resolution where you just breathe. So, a couple of thoughts. Notice that this kind of thing, when I say, and we said it in the last meeting, that we want to be the kind of a college where creativity and opportunity meet. That you see that right here, right? It's all of the giftedness, Kathy, packed into a place with a wonderful conductor doing what they're doing. You see it with the band with Dr. Jones, you see it with theater, you see it in laboratories, you see it in history classes. Creativity and opportunity meeting together. It happens on fields, doesn't it? That's what we do. We're setting the conditions for that. So note that. Do more than tuck that away. The other thing I just want to note that happened, and it's the reason I had Dr. Burgess simply step up and show you, that's how he would begin. It's a very simple gesture, isn't it? And yet they follow. And then, because I got up there, strange, they hadn't seen me do this before, and I wanted to do some things differently, they followed along. And I'll admit at first there was a bit of a tug of war, and who won that? Yeah, and that was nothing more than impulsive will. I could have gone their tempo, but I wanted to do something differently. And then there were times some of them wanted to do something differently, and they did. So it's these various wills sort of pulling against one another. And what you're seeing Dr. Burgess do, and any good conductor, is they'll use the impulsive will. Notice he didn't have to yell, scream, or thrash his arms in order to do it. He didn't. Just a very simple gesture. Okay? Sometimes it takes a lot more than that, but you get the point. So, I want to make a big point, and I think they can be done, and I don't want to just leave them standing up here because that will seem awkward to them. But let me say again, thank you for doing this because you're helping us learn, and thank you for what you do all through the semester. You work so hard over and over, and then you do these lovely performances for us, and we don't often get the chance to just say thank you, so let's say that. So while they're going, I want to draw out a couple of points about the lessons that can be learned here from listening. I noted that what they're doing is what could be called the invisible art. So the notes are gone, aren't they? I mean, except as you keep them in your memory, they're gone. That acoustic thing that was happening while they were generating this sound by air coming over vocal cords, that stopped. Those vibrations are diminished, but you have a memory about it. And I think of this like the beginning of the book of Ecclesiastes, which in your English translation is probably something like vanity of vanities. It's in the Hebrew, it's havalim. It's this notion of I guess the best way to illustrate this, you've done bubbles, right, when you were kids? Yeah, you know bubbles. You pull them out and you blow them, and what happens to them? They're there and there's much cheering by children and they're happy and they chase them around, and then what happens? They pop and they're gone. Music's like that. Opportunities are like that. And we've been saying we're at a real moment in the college's history. We'll talk more about it at the town hall, but in light of all the good things that have happened, suddenly we were able to announce last week an additional $42 million gift to the endowment. No, that's exactly right. We're just shaking our heads. So much goodness, such gifts. And we're at the moment, we have to be stewards of those gifts. And moments in institutional life are something like bubbles and like music. It can be here and then it can be gone. We want to make the most of it. I want to note that in this, Philip and I were playing with this, and all we did intentionally, by the way, is we just talked about what we would do. I didn't go rehearse or anything. And part of that was to sort of have the purity of just experimenting with this and realizing I meant what I said to them. Me wanting to do a phrase differently than Dr. Burgess or him different, that's not a matter of right and wrong. Right? So that's, when we're talking about this, there's not a lot of binary thinking going on. In fact, I could have gotten Dr. Chamberlain. You could have come up and probably done something different than we would have chosen to do, and that would have all been fine. It may be good. It may even be better at certain points, but it's not a matter of right and wrong. And I want to just talk to you for a few minutes about leadership, and there's a reason why I chose to do this with a listening exercise. And it's simply because at this stage of my life, I think Kimberly can correct me. I've been teaching for, I guess I've passed 25 years, and it's now 15 or 16 years as a provost or president. So I'm not the most experienced person in the world, but not the least. And I'm just of this conviction at this stage, and I doubt it's going to change. The leaders, I'm not saying they're the ones that are always the most successful. The leaders I want to work with are people who listen. I think it is one of the greatest attributes of leadership is to be a really good listener. When we laid out this really super long strategic planning process with these funny phases and all of this, and some of you were staring at me like, why couldn't we just do it simpler and faster? Sure, but we wouldn't be able to listen the way we're listening right now. I thought it was amazing, by the way, we'll tell you in the town hall, watching our board of trustees listen to the steering group that came and told them what they're hearing from you. 2.5 hours-ish. Listening. Wanting to hear what we're saying. Wanting to hear what you're saying. Thinking with us about what the future looks like. Listening. So if you're wondering, what is David up to when he's doing that, I hope you'll see that one thing I am trying to do is to create the conditions where we can hear one another, where we can listen, so that we can then think together about the future of the institution. So let me take you through, those are points I made about music. The readings that I gave you. I gave you a few of them, and I'm just going to give you the highlights of them. You can go back and look at them, because I'm sure if I asked every one of you read all of it, I'm sure. I'm joking, Troy. I gave you a document I first produced in 2016-17. In my first presidency, I edited it when I got here. It's there on the website for you to see. It is a thumbnail of what I'm thinking about with respect to leadership. There are two important parts of it. The first is the notion of distributed leadership. When I got here, just like in my last presidency, there were certain things just showing up in the president's office. And those who worked with me, if Amy Williams were here, she could tell you for months, I was saying, why is this here? It didn't belong with me. I wasn't near enough the decision that needed to be made to make the wisest decision. So I was busy calling on other people. Tell me what this is. What do you think is best about this? So sometimes when you hear something come to our office now, and Kim or Vanna says, hey, you need to talk to so-and-so, it's not because I don't care. It's because I want those people closest to it to often. And by the way, now that we have deans, I'm looking there at Jay, very often I'm saying, that's a thing I'd like the deans to give us a recommendation about. So this is distributed, and it's why you're seeing people talk about this acronym ARCHI, which is the old management tool of RACI, with the A and the R turned around. And it's just, I just want to know who's accountable, like who ultimately owns it. And that person almost always has a direct line to me. And then the person who's really responsible, that is, it's their job to get it done. And then the powerful C's, these are the people consulted in any project or in any decision because they're the ones who have to live with it and they have expertise about it. And we're consulting them. I keep looking at Curtis because we've had discussions about roster sizes, right? You and I talked about it. Coach Gant and I talked about it when he said, hey, I could do a developmental team. Why? Because I know we need more enrollment. And I was like, will it make your team better? I needed to consult with coaches to know what's the best thing to do long term about such decisions. And informed. Who needs to know and when do they need to know? And the answer is usually a lot sooner than we often let one another know and better, right? So that's one of our goals in all of this is to sooner and better with that. But that's just a little tool. There's nothing genius about it, nothing especially brilliant. It's just a way of organizing the work that we do so we know that we're being the best stewards of the moment that is ours and the resources that have been entrusted to us. I gave you some readings on listening and curiosity. Take a look at those. They're short, kind of standard works on this. And my point of that is we're a college, and I think everyone who teaches puts a premium on curiosity among your students, right? You really want them to be curious because curious people are the best learners. I want us as an institution, as an organization, to be curious just like the students in the classroom. So there are times I'll just ask a question about something. It could be because I'm ignorant. I just don't know, so I'd like to know. And other times I'm hearing an assumption in back of something, and I'd like to test the assumption. I'd like to see if that's really the best way to do something. I'm not trying to be cruel, not trying to be mean. I'm just wondering, is that the best way for us to do it? I'm curious. I'd like to know. And I'd like you to tell me. A student of mine at my last institution said, what does a president do? And I said, I walk around and ask questions. And the chief of staff who was standing next to me said, I think you just gave the best answer for how you spend your presidency. And it is. So if I walk around sometimes and I'll ask you about things, I'm curious. And I'm wondering, could we make that even better for you? Is that possible? So let's all listen to one another and let's be curious. I'm really committed to an everyone culture. I didn't recommend a lot of books in this series, but there is a book on that list called An Everyone Culture by a couple of co-authors. And this is the idea of a deliberately developmental organization. A DDO is what it's called. And the idea is that you hire people, you resource them to do their jobs, and then you let people develop. You give them opportunities to develop. It may be that they just get really good at the job they're doing, or it may mean they end up moving to another job, and they learn to do that really well. I like that, whether faculty or staff. I like the idea of having an everyone culture where everyone matters, where there's mutual respect, we take care of one another, and we all get to develop and learn to do better what we're supposed to be doing. This is why when I've said, Lauren and I and Russell have said to environmental services, the people who clean our buildings and our facilities crew, when people ask where you work and you say Catawba College, and then they say, what do you do? I hope somewhere in that answer is I help form the lives of students, because they do. Every person who's an employee here has a stake in helping to form the lives of students. That's an everyone culture. And why, right out of the gate, when the endowment gift last year came, we said we're going to take care of those employees who have the highest need. It's everyone culture, because we're going to take care of one another. And then I'll just mention the joy of being better. I quit conducting in, I don't know the year it was, Philip. I'd have to go back and look. I was at the University of North Texas, your alma mater. I was in the conducting program under Hal Gibbons, and I was thoroughly miserable. And the reason I was miserable is because I was a perfectionist. Couldn't sleep at night. I'd perform and then throw up all night long afterward. I was a wreck. And
What makes you think
yeah. I was about to say some of you all probably do. It wasn't healthy for me. I just quit for a while. I came back to it later. But I was in a workshop, Harold Best up at Wheaton, who said to me, well, first of all, Hal, my teacher at UNT, said, I can't even help you with this. Like, I don't know what to do with you because you're so wired to get every last detail right. He once yelled at me in a conducting seminar because he said, you didn't make any mistakes. Don't ever do that to me again. But I was technically perfect, but it wasn't good music making. It wasn't. And he told me, he was being very honest. He said, you have to let the musicians make music, and you may put on a good show, but man, it's not good for them, it's not good for you. But Harold Best was the one who taught me excellence isn't being perfect. Excellence is being better tomorrow than you are today, and better a week from now than you are today, and better a month from now and better a year from now. That's excellence. It's a pursuit. It's not a destination. So when you hear me say even better, and this has happened, there are people in this room who could say in the past couple of weeks, they've heard me say, I really appreciate that. I think that went well. How could we make that even better? I won't ever be able to stop asking that question. I just won't, because we'll never arrive. And yet at the same time, I want your work and my work to be joy. Those are hard things to put together, but I'm determined that we do it, and I think we can do it, and I think we can learn to do that together. So I just want to tell you the things I'm committed to, and then I'm happy to take a few questions. I'm committed to an everyone culture and this idea of a deliberately developmental organization within a context of distributed leadership. Let me tell you that pure executive decision making, where I just make all the calls, is much easier, simpler, and cleaner. I don't think it's better. Now, the cabinet will tell you that when we had to make a decision about vaccines, there was a point at which I said, I've heard everything, I'm making the call. I did that for a reason. One was it had to be made, and two was I would rather people be mad at me than everybody else. So sometimes we just do that, and if there's a need, I'll do it. Sometimes, to be honest, it's better, even though it's not as clean and it may not be as simple, I want to push these things out because for natural sciences, people like Jay Boland and Luke Dollar and all the rest of you and everyone in that department, you're better at deciding what needs to happen there than I am. I'm not a scientist. I have no idea what's going on. Unfortunately, Dean Burgess and Forrest have to put up with me because I know some stuff about performing arts and humanities. So I might stick my nose in more than I need to, and they're free to swap me away when they need to. Distributed. Let's get it out there to the people who are best in place to make a decision. That's why, by the way, when some people are saying, hey, we need this position on cabinet, and I'm saying, why? And the thought is, well, if you're sitting on cabinet, you get to make all those decisions. No, on cabinet, you get to direct traffic and move it to the place where the decisions should be made. And then if you're on cabinet, you get blamed for the decisions that people don't like. So it's not, you don't want to be on cabinet for that. Good luck, right, Earl? He only barely laughed at that because he knows what I'm talking about. A culture funded by mission and values and committed to excellence. We've talked about this in weeks past. It's why we're going to refresh our statement of mission and values. We're not changing our identity. We're not changing the mission. We just want to state it freshly. We want to state very clearly what our values are, and we'll always be committed to excellence. That's not perfection. It's excellence. It's being better. It's even better. A campus where students receive an exceptional education with opportunities for personal formation and exploration of vocation. That's my tagline. It won't always be the tagline. When we find a better tagline, we'll use it. It's what I'm using because I think it holds much of what the college has always done and continues to do really, really well. I'm committed to the liberal arts, the artes liberales. I'm not committed to putting words called liberal arts on a catalog and acting like we're doing something we're not. I'm committed to this tradition of letting students dip broadly into the expanse of knowledge, and begin to learn how to learn. Liberal arts is less about just what's in the curriculum, so some of those things really, really matter. But it is about pedagogies and about ways of learning and cultivating this rich life of learning for a very long time. And yes, studying some things that students wouldn't choose to study, because guess what? There are a lot of faculty who've spent a lot of years on this, and they may actually know better than an 18-year-old. So we're committed to that. And for those of you that are teaching in what people call the professional fields, I don't draw a dichotomy between these. I just don't. I'm not wired that way, because the liberal arts always has worked itself out in practical ways. If you wonder about that, go read Aristotle. From its inception, the classics were paying attention to why ideas matter and how they work out in life. I'm committed to that. By the way, it was one of the few things when I talked to the board, like non-negotiable for me. I think it was like this and vocation. Maybe there was something else, I don't know. But pretty close. I think this is really important, and most colleges are doing away with it or have done away with it. Interestingly, if you want to be distinctive, just hang on to this. Student-ready campus. We've talked about this before. I'm going to keep saying it. If we come up with better language, nice, we'll use it. But for now, really committed. We tell students to be ready for college, and we admit them on that basis. And I'm saying once we say yes to them, let's be ready for them. We want them to be ready for us, and we need to be ready for them. That's why I was really frustrated a minute ago when I heard a student that couldn't get registered. Dr. Burgess knows if there's a continued problem with that, I want to know. That's a barrier to students that shouldn't be in their way. Even better. Sorry if I stepped on feet there. Web. Thank you, Dr. Givens. Well-being, equity, and belonging. That's that acronym, I think, came out of a discussion with him. I'm really committed to this, the idea of well-being, being an equitable campus, and a place where everybody just has a sense of belonging. We welcome students home when they get here. Very first thing. We all do it, don't we, Jared? We all say welcome home. We put up posters. I want it to really feel like home. I know home can be messy, and we don't always get along, right? And we may fuss, but it needs to be a place where everybody truly belongs. We're committed to environmental sustainability. That, by the way, was the third thing. This was one of the things that drew me, that your board put out a presidential profile that had this as one of its top 5. Not surprising, love. We're just going to be a campus that takes care of one another. It is that kind of place. We demonstrated that to one another during a pandemic. And even when things go wrong, we're just going to take care of one another. Dr. Clapp knows this. I read, it was Jacob Clapp, who the longest-serving president, whose first sermon intentionally was on love. And Dr. Clapp asked me to speak in chapel during the pandemic. That first Sunday, we knew not a lot of people will be there. I took a cue from the past and delivered that message on exactly the same topic. There's a reason for that. I think that's really who we've been from the beginning. Haven't lived it perfectly by any means. But I think that we can do this, and we can do it even better, right? And when we do that, all the rest of these things will fall in place. So that's not a leadership philosophy, or maybe it is. I'm not sure I care. It is sort of stuff I know about leadership. And if you're wondering what's happening up here, which is what Christine asked me to do, tell them what's up there. This is what's up there. This is what's in here. And those readings I gave you will help elaborate a bit more on that. Are there questions? Did you learn anything about listening today? I'm seeing nods. That piece right there, in fact, love listens. This is just at the root of everything. for me. And I'd like for us to excel at listening. And we've talked a lot about, a number of us, the opportunity for sort of a signature of Catawba College that no matter what field you're in, you leave and you're really ready to be a good leader. And our alums demonstrate this. Like, this has been a mark of the college. I like talking to employers who say, I really like the people I get from Catawba College. When we went down to the research campus and started talking about putting a lab there, the man that runs it, he said, my favorite students are from Catawba College. He wasn't just saying that. And he deals with students from some very prestigious institutions, and he said they're smart, they work hard, and I just like them. They're likable people. The college has been doing this for a long time. And so this goes into let's not mess that up, okay? And so in this process, let's really listen to one another, hear what everyone has to say. And it's a bit like these different sections, because some of you have told us already you'd like to not be off in the silos as much. And then I bet some of you would love to just be in the silos and tell me to leave you alone. Sometimes we'll be in sections like that because it's naturally how we work, right? Curtis doesn't have Philip come out and do choir rehearsal in the middle of football practice, and he's not having you teach blocking and tackling. That might be fun, but that's... In fact, no. So we're off in our places, and yet we all live together, and we learn together, and imagine, well, you don't have to imagine it because you see it. One reason our graduates go and do as well as they do is because you have been doing this kind of thing, helping them to draw connections. I said it last week, if you just teach students to do systems thinking, along with a few other things, they'll be enormously successful. And we do some of that, but I'm not sure we do it as well as we could. So we want to do it even better. And part of the exercise of this whole process is to just get in spaces together and spend some time together and think together. And I imagine argue with one another from time to time to determine what the best way of doing this is for the sake of our students. And I've already laid out enough of you what I think that looks like. And I'll tell you, board members were still wondering when Christine and Connie and Earl were showing the themes, still wondering what I thought, and I said, what? I'm not telling them what I'm thinking. Now, if they've been listening, they have an idea of what I'm thinking. I want us to come to this together, and over the next few months, boy, does the fun really begin. Between now and about February 1st, February 15th, we're going to let all of this stuff take shape. And from there, you bet, there are going to be some places we say, absolutely yes. And there are going to be some places where we say, maybe, or not ready. And there'll be some places where we'll have to say, we can't do that. And here's why. So all that's going to be packaged up in this, but I have no doubt, because I meant it when I said it at our opening assembly, I trust you with this, and I'm listening. And I'm going to keep listening, and we're going to see this thing form. And then we'll present to the board in June, though we'll have it done before then, a really compelling plan with a 10-year horizon for the next 5 years. I thought you deserved to know what your president is committed to with respect to leadership. And while this may be a bit messy and not as neat and clean as a more firmly executive model, this is me. And I'm not going to try to be someone that I'm not. But when hard calls have to be made, I'm willing to make them. So I hope that gives you a bit of insight. Feel free to ask me questions later on if you don't want to ask me here. And take a look at these readings. Other than that book, they're all very short. And especially, pay attention to those readings on listening and curiosity. They may be of help to your students in the future. All right, thanks everyone. I really appreciate you being here.